First, Norman Yee, who reaffirmed his support for education. Second, I believe, was Jeff Sheehy. His office was very nice to us. They reminded us that they are members of the Milk Club and taking our force very seriously. They seem nervous, so I think that's switchable. Then we went to Malia Cohen's office. They were open. And then we went to London's office, and she was in the office.
Oh.
They weren't as suitable. But it was very fun. We had like 30 or so people there. It was good. It was good. Milk Club force, you know, it was good force. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't lobby. I just helped organize the rally. And, you know, automatically reached out. I'm the co-president of the Democratic Party. We just reached out to Garland, Kimberly, and Bridget, and to bring us that, you know, we all have this common cause and we need to get together to work on this. It's been a good coalition over there, brought in the Bernie Crafts, Democratic Socialists, and the Latino Democrats, I guess I'm not as cautiously optimistic. I'm pretty pissed, I guess, at the idea that Malia and London Breed could position themselves as being for police reform and not supportive of the one candidate who is truly for police reform, who is not, you know, Asha has the support of the POA and Asha supports the Police Officers Association. You want to put someone in who has been supportive of the Police Officers Association. To be on the police commission, you need to not be a fan of the POA. I'm not saying, you know, be against them, but you need to have wisdom and just justice, professionalism, and being just and hear out arguments, ask questions, to always ask questions. And we know that with what Asha has lining up is someone who has spoken out in favor of the POA, and that can't be on. You can't have someone who's pro-POA trying to govern the POA because it's just not right.
So I thought it was a nice show of people. We had people from Coleman advocates, we had the Democratic Club, we had Harvey Milk, we had the Democrats, DSA. There was some other youth groups there too. Yeah. And we went in all the supervisors and we got guests from Normandy, but the other two were kind of wait on the Wilson meeting. Actually with Monday office, they didn't want to talk to us. They said they didn't want to talk to us right before the meeting and everything. So we waited, well I and Tammy, Brian, we waited stayed at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and we just got to public comment. It was like 7:30 at night. So we went up there and presented why we support Petra, and that Petra has been working with, she started back in 1979 when she was working for the Mission Community Legal Defense, and that she represented under low income, and she had cases there, and then she went to become a lawyer and represent people to defend them regarding asbestos, because she's supposed to asbestos. Then in 2005 she came and she was, the Board of Supervisors voted her in and she became a police commissioner. She's been working on police reform and she's like a community activist. She's just done so much work, and she's just like, from the 1979, she was working to represent people, and she also continued that because they actually worked with ACLU and other community groups, and they put it on the ballot, and that's how they got the OCC. So she's always been on that track.
And don't forget Pepper is strongly opposed to tasers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely.
Good.
Yes.
He led the fight, which we won last year.
Yes.
Against
So,
tasers.
Again, Olga was there. She had a little small crew she was talking to. We had like a 35 person crew. We had to cram into each of those offices. We made room for ourselves. So she had a little crew, a little 2-person crew. We had a big crew. We had a big crew.
And not only that, but I think the highlight of the evening was I went on, Tammy, Brian went on, you know, Tammy's awesome. But then at the end of the night, Paul Melvistad, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He came in and he presented Asha's 7-number form where he showed that he listed Olga as an employer, that he made like $10,000. He said, isn't that a conflict of interest? And he put it on the screen so all the supervisors could see that.
I was gonna say that, I mean, it's probably obvious, but like, we did talk to Jane Kim, and she was like definitely supporting, things to support and say. And, obviously, viewers supporting, we have the progressives supporting her. And I would say that I'm also pissed off, like, maybe cautiously optimistic that one person will have the political will to like push this forward. That I will say also when we went into London's office, Safai and London, I believe, were both in the office and refused to come out and speak to everyone. Cohen's office was basically talking about how they've been talking with Petra, how Cohen knows everything that's going on. She gave a lot of lip service to. People gave a lot of lip service to respecting the legacy of the Milk Club, respecting the legacy of Harry and Harvey and what we're doing here. So we'll see what happens. But if not, I will be even more pissed off. And I hope that they weren't just giving us lip service. I hope that they were actually meaning what they were saying. Recorded though.
Just like a quick reminder, David Wagner, former co-president of the Milk Club, narrowly lost his possible appointment to the police commission because we didn't have our allies back in. We are not going to let history mistake itself. But I was thinking a lot about Harvey Milk and David Wagner, and it reminds me of Harvey. Very similar to it. Not going to let history repeat itself.
And the other
Imagine we can.
the other thing I'll say is that you were there to see Jordan Davis get hurt.
Absolutely.
And I also just want to say briefly, it was unanimous. A resolution for consideration by the club. So, you're going to talk more about this, but I will just say that Tom Soprano and I have both been working on this problem issue. You may have read about it. The Apothecarium, which is a great business in the Castro, a medical marijuana provider, is interested in opening a dispensary on the west side in a very underserved part of the city in terms of medical marijuana dispensaries, and has teamed up with Floyd Ewan. And his wife Jean Kwan, who was mayor of Oakland, who are working with them on this. And I think there's a lot of reasons why this club should be supportive of medical marijuana dispensaries in general, in concept. This club has worked on this issue forever. The panel earlier was talking about the historic relationship between Harvey Milk and the club and pot. And in some ways, having this fight about a medical marijuana dispensary seems really kind of like, yes, isn't this like something from 5 or 10 years ago as we move forward towards legalization more broadly? But anyway, this fight is happening, and in addition to our historic commitment to patients being able to get their medicine and not having to buy it on street corners, we have some enemies in this fight who seem to be enemies of us as queer people, who are also apparently enemies of pot and medical marijuana dispensaries in particular. And so the Pacific Justice Institute, which you may or may not have heard of, but is a really some of these rotten retrograde right-wing think tanks, legal organizations that brings lawsuits and generally causes bad things to happen in the world. They were strongly opposed to same-sex marriage, did a fair amount of organizing around that. They have been strongly opposed to protections for transgender students and have been organizing around that. And they seem to believe that their sort of connection into San Francisco, the way they're going to build their support here is to team up with folks who really don't want to see more medical marijuana dispensaries. So I think, and I know Tom Soprano, who has been working on this resolution as well, could not stay, believe the club should be on record as opposing what the Justice Institute is doing. Lastly, because the Apothecarium is a good business and has contributed generously in Castro, and it's just, they're good folks. So with that, I know less about this than Elliot. Elliot is the community relations
Head of community outreach.
Head of community outreach for the Apothecarium. And while he's speaking, I will hand out, who I, by the way, have known since we were in college, 800 years ago. I will hand out the resolution for your approval.
I was just telling Raphael the other day that he was the very first nice gay man I ever met. Everyone should vote. So the Apothecarium, we're the Castro's main dispensary. We opened in 2011. We've given away about $335,000 to community nonprofits. We have all kinds of programs for low-income patients. And right now, we're trying to open up in the Sunset. And we are being fought tooth and nail along with two other dispensaries. And we've got representatives from AxisOfLove here as well.
Come on. You were on the agenda too.
Visitation Valley.
Yes.
So this is a real live hate group. They are tracked by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And we went out to present to a sleepy little meeting in the Sunset. Usually 10 or 20 people show up to the Sunset Parkside meeting. And Dr. Hewen, who's 70 years old and is an internist, was there to talk a little bit about opiate addiction and how marijuana is a great alternative to opiates. And suddenly, from where we know not, 100 people showed up, crammed into this tiny little meeting room, started chanting, shouting, all holding matching signs. They shouted him down. He couldn't even speak, couldn't get a single word out. We were inside the Terrorize police station. I was legitimately scared. It was angry, it was ugly, it felt dangerous. And they have been following us around, tagging our location, doing all kinds of terrible stuff. They literally, in their letter to the planning department, are predicting gun battles on Noriega Street if we open up. The same arguments that they used against all of us here, that we're coming for everyone's children, they are now turning on cannabis patients and cannabis dispensaries. And they are targeting the Asian Pacific American community. And this, as Raphael said, this is their total. We have protests out at the Ortega Ranch Library. Again, 100 people showed up. This time, none of their leaders came because we have successfully raised awareness that they're a hate group. Our hearing is June 8th at City Hall. We expect 200 or 300 of them to come out. We are rallying everyone in the community. Please come out. Have you ever seen a hate group live and in person? Have you ever thought to yourself, if I were in Mississippi, I would go out and I would fight against the hate group? This is your opportunity to see them live in the flesh. They have been successful. 5-6 years ago, the Planning Commission approved another dispensary out in the Sunset. And our Board of Supervisors overturned that unanimously. Nobody raised the alarm about PJI. We're doing that today. But we need people, we need bodies June 8th, and we need this resolution as well.
And I wanted to just maybe from connect
Sure.
access.
So my company, the dispensary we're trying to start is in Visitation Valley. That's another community with a high, Asian American population. And PGI comes in and they stir the pot and they inject money and they spread lies about medical cannabis use and its patients. And they're discriminating against medical cannabis patients the same way that they were discriminating against the LGBT community. And frankly, we need your help. We're fighting a battle, and we're once again on the front lines. And I never, I'm a medical cannabis advocate. I didn't know that I was going to get all
get all tied up in this, but here we are. And it's time to do the right thing. So even though Elliot and I are from different companies, we've joined forces at different meetings to be like, just tell people, like, this is what's going on, you know, and we need your help. And so, you know, from my perspective, we're going to the Planning Commission June 22nd, you know, and Elliot's been taking more flack than us because the Apothecarium is a bigger target. We're the new guy on the block, and we're way down in Visitation Valley. But they're going to line the buses up, and they're going to pay the people, and they're going to come in, they're going to do the same thing to us. And so, you know, in solidarity we stand here.
So how can the club be supportive to?
You know, for us, like, my partner's going to pass around a petition and some form letters of support. If you can come speak at either one of our public hearings, that would be fantastic. If you want to approach me or Elliot and help us organize, like, I would absolutely love that. And Elliot's drafted the resolution that we support that. We have one, but I think his is more eloquent, so we're going to go with his.
So just a word about that. I'm sorry I didn't bring enough copies, and then I can answer some questions. It's a condemnation of PJI and their activities against our community, and it's also in support of cannabis patients. It's not about specific.
Yeah. Should I just quickly read it? I'm just going to quickly read it, ladies and gentlemen. Whereas the Pacific Justice Institute is a Sacramento-based organization that has been declared a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and whereas PJI has fought for years to oppose domestic partnerships, civil unions, marriage equality, and access to restrooms by transgender citizens, and has been one of the most active anti-LGBTQ groups in the country, and whereas PJI has a long history of promoting gay conversion therapy, and whereas PJI fabricated a story about a transgender teenager harassing other students and launched a website called genderinsanity.com, which fights transgender protections in schools and gay inclusion in the Boy Scouts, and whereas PJI Executive Director Brad Dacus says a law designed to protect transgender students will turn California schools into a horror film, and compared stopping marriage equality to stopping the Nazis, and whereas PJI is now attacking the Castro-based business, the Apothecarium, and other legally permitted medical cannabis dispensaries using the same fear tactics that they use against the LGBT community, citing a danger to our kids, and shutting down a meeting about the medical efficacy of cannabis for people with potentially life-threatening illnesses. And whereas there's a deep connection between the LGBT community and the cannabis community dating back to the 1990s when Dennis Barone and Brandy Mary provided safe havens like the SF Cannabis Virus Club for patients with HIV/AIDS to obtain their medicine, and whereas medical cannabis was and is used for people with HIV/AIDS and cancer to treat pain, nausea, appetite loss, and depression, and whereas our community cannot stand idly by while these fear-based tactics deny people both their civil rights and their access to medical care, and whereas the Pacific Justice Institute has now opened up a Bay Area office in Oakland with the intent of organizing and fomenting anti-LGBTQ and anti-medical cannabis activity within the Asian American community, now therefore be it resolved that the Harvey Milk Democratic Club and the Allison Toklas Democratic Club, they're doing one too, jointly condemn the actions of the Pacific Justice Institute and their fear-based tactics, claiming that the LGBT community and the medical cannabis community are threats to our children, and be it further resolved that we jointly call on our appointed and elected officials to condemn these fear-based activities against both the LGBT community and the medical cannabis community, and be it further resolved that this resolution be sent to the San Francisco Planning Commission, San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and the Office of Mayor Edwin Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
I have a sort of question / comment.
Yeah.
I love marijuana and alcohol and everything.
Yeah.
And I also recognize that prohibition is like a terrible thing, and that harm reduction is really important, and decriminalizing, drugs is a really important thing to do. And I do recognize that marijuana has fewer side effects than a lot of other medications or drugs. And at the same time, I support like every word in this. And I understand that in some cases, depression can be helpful for depression, particularly in cases where there's a lot of pain or sort of cancer symptoms. And at the same time, every person I've treated myself as a clinician who was using marijuana heavily or even semi-heavily had more depression because of marijuana use. And so one of the major things that we had to do was decrease marijuana usage. So I'm okay with everything in this except for the piece about depression, unless it's contextualized saying, you know, it helps with depression in these certain cases, because I think one of the problems that a lot of my friends promote is the idea that depression helps with anxiety and depression, or sorry, that marijuana helps with anxiety and depression, but that's really not necessarily true. I think that the truth lies in it's a little bit more complicated than that.
We can take the question out.
Okay.
We had a few more comments, Jordan, and then Kevin.
Yeah, I didn't really have a comment.
Oh, Kevin?
Oh, I was just gonna say, pot makes me psychopath paranoid. I strongly support this. It's not thinking about it.
It's probably good to mark to your comments.
Oh, God.
Brent?
It sounds like not only do you need people to speak, but as an inoculator against the bad guys, you also want people to show up real early and pack that room so that they're forced into overflow, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I can pass out cards after speaking up here if anyone would like to.
I just want to say you guys are understating the vileness of the Pacific Justice Institute.
Oh, thank you.
They spread the most vile lies about transgender people. You know, into the bathroom debate, they were the major people putting out that, you know, children are going to get molested by transgender people in the bathroom. They are unrepentant. They belong in Mississippi, not California. They belong in the 1970s, not the 2010s.
You completely agree. I think you can't. I gotta take them.
Terry?
I just want to ask, is that resolution available online?
It is not, but I can share it. Absolutely. I think we
can
sent
blast
it
it out to the members after.
We sent it to the club leadership, and maybe you guys can.
Do you have a Facebook page?
We do have a Facebook page, absolutely.
Post it there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put it up on. We can put it on.
Do it. Has a Facebook page?
Yes.
They're posted on there.
I can do that.
I'll look. Okay.
Lito?
I'd actually like to make a motion that the Harvey Milk Club adopt this resolution with Brad's amendment.
Second.
Maybe second. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. And everybody, my department is back up for this round. If you guys can sign while you're here, that'd be fantastic, just to
Okay.
kind of get it going.
All right, thank you. We're almost-
I have a question. Would you support cannabis legalization with no jail time in 2018?
Can you ask us on the side?
Yes. Would you support real cannabis legalization in 2018?
I support cannabis legalization in all forms.
Because right now it has jail time. Right now there's jail time too much,
It's
and
not perfect.
it's a hot mess. It's not even good enough to fix. You can't fix it. It's not fixable. You know, we have to replace it. So it's got a life sentence. 11358D, a cross-reference with the penal code, promises a life sentence, 25 years for selling a gram or growing 7 plants. There's no wealth distribution. None. No wealth distribution. It has more jail time than what we had Prop 215. You feel me? It's really bad. We've got to replace it because the people who are vulnerable are people on the streets because they made more crimes for them. And you know who they are? 40% are LGBT people, and they won't be able to get housing with crimes on their record.
First club, Democratic club in California, first club to ever endorse us with Raphael as the president. Also, Tom Amiano put together the Voting Rights Task Force for San Francisco, and right now San Francisco is on the brink of leading the country toward secure, open source, transparent voting systems, which will solve the crisis in the United States that is come to us courtesy of groups like you've heard, vendors by the name of Diebold, now Dominion, things like that. The fact we can't get a proper vote count is shameful. It certainly affects the community here that's represented here. And so I just wanted to let you know that we did pass a resolution years ago when Raphael was the president here that said the Harvey Milk Club supports open source, supports our efforts. If anybody that when we were talking about earlier, talking about manipulators and placeholders that come into movements, If anybody shows up here and starts talking about open source all over again, just so you know, we've already done this work, and we're right at the tail end of trying to get the Department of Elections, at the direction of the mayor, the Board of Supervisors, and the Elections Commission, to put the system into place, which will lead California. There's a bill, AB 668, which we stand against until it's revised properly. But what I really wanted to do is come here to inoculate, to say, if some wise guy assholes show up here talking about open source, that's a corporate spin. There's a nuance I won't get into about the licensing. We stand up for any technical people here for general public license, open source. That's the high ground. We don't need any corporate folks coming in and nuancing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.